Welcome to Uranian Streams. This episode, we are discussing what it is like with natal moon in the sign of Virgo. And first, I just wanted to start out by introducing Virgo as a mutable earth energy. And when I think of mutable earth, I think of it's ruled by Mercury as well, Virgo. And mutable as a modality is very much air kind of elemental. It's the intermediary. It's being able to pick up and sense perceptions, in this case, in Virgo, of the physical. And so, what I notice with the energy of Virgo is that it usually, when it's in a prominent placement, like the moon sign, the rising, or the sun, that typically the person has a very keen perception of the physical, and that can look like being someone who is a creator or a doctor or works with the plant spheres. There's many herbalists and people who work within areas of like classification of the material who have Virgo energy. And so it's to me kind of like a melding of the air with the earth. And so it's the house it rules is actually the sixth house in astrology, and that's the house of routines. So these people with their moon in Virgo tend to be very dialed when it comes to how they regiment their time, being very on top of health and order, and just even having a general maybe preoccupation even with work and service, where that becomes kind of like a central theme in their lives.
Um, yeah, just bouncing off of or responding to what Molly's sharing about Virgo moon or Virgo moons in general. That was a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. I'll touch upon a couple of things. It's definitely a very practical moon sign. So you can almost picture a mother that has everything prepared, very practical, very perhaps fastidious, like a Virgo sun would be, but in the sense of the practical physical world. So very pragmatic, perhaps not so much in the affection realm, but more love is expressed through the setups and the organization of the physical world. So what you'll see with Virgo moons is you will perceive a certain lack of affection, but it's not a lack of affection. It's just presenting itself in a different way. All the moons love in their own way. You know, just like we have the idea that many, I mean, that's what it is for this particular energy of the moon in Virgo. You also want to think about how the moon is accentuated. Its coldness, the coldness of the moon, is accentuated by being in the sign of Virgo. So there is a coldness that comes off of these people that you can feel. And to
Mm.
and to a certain extent, they are very kinesthetic. I mean, their sense of the physical world is related, as Molly was touching on, to a very strong physical ability to extract knowledge from touch, right? That's what kinesthetics is. So you have that with the Virgo moons. Career is almost comes at the forefront to anything else. Career is the most important thing, and they're building it from the get-go. These are people that prepare their lives for what they want to do and how they want to do it. These are people that organize way ahead of time.
Definitely.
These are people that are very precise in the way they unfold, how they want things to work out. It's very controlled, you know, very cold and controlled. It can come off as very kind of brusque and unemotional and unaffected to others. And
Mm.
The some of the warmer signs, so the warmer moon signs won't really be able to understand. The warm signs that need more affection won't always get it. You know, love is again coming in a different form. Go ahead, Mom.
Uh, yeah, I mean, what you spoke of, one of the examples I have of this moon is the actor Jack Nicholson. And to say work comes first is like, yeah, definitely applies to him. Just anecdotally, when he would be preparing like for one of his hit movies, The Shining, and all his movies really, people report that he's always in character. And that's where you kind of see the similarity in a sense, the mercurial effect that comes out in the Gemini moon too, where he would always be in character because he had to always be on, in a sense. Like he had to always be in that role in order to feel like he was actually doing his job well. So he would like even be in his character between, the scenes, and treat the people he would be working on movies with like as his character would. So I find that really interesting. And also anecdotally, he was just a man who in his personal life had very uh, a lot of types of like he had a lot of relationships and is the father of like a lot of different children to different women. And he talked about loving being a father, but also admitted that he felt like he was a bit of a workaholic and that he didn't necessarily put the children first. So that's definitely, what you're speaking to as, the moon, having this moon placement, it can feed into how the mother was and maybe the character she was. And as you said, there could be a lot of like love and nurturing because Virgo, it's this earth uh, role model kind of energy, really embodied. They can be very embodied and sensual. But as you mentioned, then there's maybe that preoccupation with the public role or the service and the work, the role in the world, the day-to-day routines, that
Right.
sixth house element, where that may have come first and foremost.
Yeah, no, it's very common, and I like that you touched on the sensuality. This gets glossed over a lot. In human design, it's in the forefront because of the particular gates that rule Virgo. But not a lot of people talk about the sensuality of Virgos, the coldness, the discrimination, the criticalness, the judgmentalness. But the moon here is going to highlight and nuance the sensuality. And the sensuality can come in place again of the affection, of the love, because it carries forth as it is, a little cold, and then so sensuality is treated in a certain way that doesn't necessarily always express itself in tandem with affection or love. I mean, we don't want to get into the complexities of that, but that was a great point. I'm really glad you brought that up because there is that dimension to Virgos that we forget, and especially here with the moon. Another thing he said I wanted to touch upon was he said that Nicholson stayed in character. I think that's method acting, right? When they kind of not they won't necessarily stay in character with their crew, but some of the method actors will, right?
It's
And
taking it to like that next level where, yeah, that is method acting. Yeah, where you're not breaking. It's like you're fully embodying that role. And I feel like with a Virgo moon, it's like there's always some role to play. And maybe that is just being a caretaker or, whatever the career or occupation is, but there is just an emphasis on how maybe the awareness of how am I showing up or like how am I being of service that's like pressing them at all times, maybe.
it's interesting. I was just thinking of Jim Carrey, who was trying to do the same thing when he was making the film Man on the Moon, right? We're talking about moons here. And he had a Capricorn moon, so he was another Earth moon. I don't know that he would do that all the time, but I know that in some of his films he would attempt to stay in character as
He's
well.
a Gemini moon.
Is he a Gemini?
Yeah, we talked about him in our Gemini moon.
He's a Capricorn sun.
Yes.
Okay.
But To me, that's where that mercurial influence, you see it in both the Gemini and the Virgo moon. And it is easy to forget because Virgo's an earth sign. You know, we think of earth signs as just generally being earth is a more fixed element.
Right.
But that is what's unique about mutable earth is that you get that blending of the mercurial, and that's where they do kind of, to me, play this role. They're always maybe on in some effect, and that's maybe the coldness you're picking up in that there's a lot of self-awareness with the Virgo energy. And sometimes when people are very self-aware, it's hard to know, are you really breaking through to some authentic intimacy or closeness, or is it more kind of
Well said.
pretense?
Well said. A lot of pretense, I would imagine at times, or at least coming off as pretense, as you said.
Right.
Good observation. The example I was thinking of was the writer Tolstoy, the Russian author, who was very precise in his actual depiction of family life. Having a large family, being a writer and author at the time, it's going to be way different from what we experience now. But just a very precise awareness of character, of people, of life, of emotion, of nuance. I wonder
Mm.
to the same effect if he put his work above everything else. I mean, he wrote War and Peace, which is, one of those huge, gargantuous, pieces of literature. So it wouldn't be too hard to, to suspect that. Um, and again, just a very steady, practical building nature. I mean, definitely geared towards literature in a sense. I mean, that he wrote this,
Totally.
that their ability to stay with something for a while and
Yeah,
build it, right? As opposed to like the fire moons who start something and, oh, did I start that? And just done on to the next thing.
absolutely. You know the director David Lynch, he's a Virgo moon as well. And if you just
Ah,
look at his like collection of works and even just the way he would direct films, like the level of detail and the level of nuance of symbolism, because this sign is very much connected to the Hermetic, right? So I think of this sign, this energy very much as like people who the hermit, literally the hermit card in the tarot, people who embody that energetic with that sense of devotion to form of some form or another, whether it's practicing medicine or it's being a scientist or a director or an author. We see that with a lot of the earth moons, but yeah, particularly there's going to be this like devotion to the craft, whatever that craft is, because the hermit hides away, because there's a sense of like wanting to master and to perfect, to distill down to like some like masterpiece that they can take ownership of and be this like role model for.
well said. You really captured the essence right there, which allows me to kind of extricate from that the point that remember that the moon is the deepest heart of a person. It's their deepest core. It's where they come from, right? So our moon sign is always how we are instinctually in the world before we learn to prepare ourselves or change or grow or work through things. We are instinct. That is our baby. That is like our root heart in us. So a Virgo moon it's going to be hard to touch bases with their emotional core because it is something almost other than that.
Mm.
And in
It's inextricable, maybe that's the word, from their work. They're one and the same. It's like their heart is their work in a way, you might
yes,
say.
yes. And so how do you personalize that in a relationship?
Mm-hmm.
How does that get personalized? It's almost an impersonal expansion of that heart for everyone, and it doesn't remain very personal in that sense. And so that could be um, the trouble, perhaps that, or not the trouble, but how they can be perceived in a relationship.
Mm.
Again, it's best to see it as their ability to love is manifested differently. it's manifested in their ability to organize, to present, to um, be practical and steady and pragmatic about things, about money, about business, about how the household can work. But the challenge is, someone who has a Virgo moon, the question we ask, right, is was the mother uh, caring, empathetic, um, fully present, interactive, engaging? And what we get more is a model mother, a mother that's modeling for the child. Okay, this is how we get things done. This is you get where I'm
Hmm.
going with this in the sense,
Totally.
what kind of mother do we have here? Always when we do these moon videos, just a reminder for everyone is the importance of understanding the role the moon plays in the chart as the mother of the person. That energy is coming from the mom. It's like it's your emotional basis for this lifetime, which comes from the mother, which you learn from the mother, which your frequency is at a match for the mother when you're born. So this is the root part of the self there.
It's funny, my mom was
I,
calling.
I loved all the synchronicities.
Yeah, no, that was funny. I was like, whoa. She's actually a Virgo rising, not a Virgo moon though. But I found it interesting in that moment you were talking about the mom, and my mom's literally calling me.
Yeah.
Um, this is a message from the mother. Uh, that's yeah, beautifully put. As well as being the mother, it's the moon is our stomach. So when we bring maybe like a more medical, physical to this particular moon placement, this is going to be someone who's very sensitized in that area, right? Wherever the moon, what sign is your moon is going to be an area where it's more sensitive for you, and so there's maybe a a delicate nature to the stomach of someone with this moon placement, where they have to be very, and they probably already mentally would be very particular with the diet, but it might be a child, if you have a Virgo moon child or someone in your life who they might not be able to tolerate certain foods. Like they might have to have a very particular diet because Virgo rules our digestive system, the ability to, the whole process really of digestion, of like assimilating nutrients and getting rid of waste and knowing, okay, that's waste, that's excess, this is nutrient, this can stay. It's that whole filtration process is ruled by Virgo. Um, so yeah, these are people who can be very sensitive in that sense and are probably extremely health conscious. Like Madonna is a famous Virgo moon who, considering, she's this huge pop icon, musician, that typically goes with a certain type of lifestyle in this culture, at least. Like, oh, we assume rock and roll, drugs, this and that, but Madonna is very like well known for like having not touched, not using substances. And she's even said, like, why would I need to take something to feel a certain way? I can just generate that within myself. I don't need to like take something external to feel a certain way. The weakness perhaps would be maybe when I think of the opposite sign, Pisces, which rules sleep and rest, and that just kind of like nothingness. The Virgo moon may struggle to just sleep at the end of a day and get the rest that they need because they're so inclined to be focused on the productivity, the work, the great work, whatever it is, that they don't have the time to just kind of check out from it all, because we look at the opposite sign to see maybe where, what would be harder for that moon, what would be like a difficult area. And I also think that this moon, one of the shadows can be, I've seen manifested like as excellent they are with health and knowing plants and being aware of nutrients and having all that information, is then maybe taking it too far in the mental, where there's like a hypochondria, or there's this fear or almost overly rigid way of connecting with health and exercise and routine as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. They can beat themselves into a corner with routine. Um, for sure. I mean, this is like Virgo is all about structuring, and um, this would be an emotional, instinctual response, like already like strongly a part of the person. So this would be the looking for the breakthrough, as Molly was suggesting, with the opposite sign in Pisces, letting go, opening up the boundaries, dissolving boundaries, and creating new boundaries. And this is the breakthrough for the Virgo moon, is to look to Pisces, as Molly mentioned. And that's right on. I don't think I have any more to add.
Okay, great. No other examples come to mind or that you need to talk about?
No, you really, I think we really summed it up well.
Okay.
I like your insert in the last part. I mean, Virgo rules the digestive process, as Molly said, and in particular the intestines, which um, and
Yeah, it's not the stomach. I think I said stomach, but yeah, it's particularly I think the small intestine or large intestine, one of the intestines.
I think both, maybe not. But I wanted to add to that because we see this with the Virgo rising. I know we're not doing Virgo rising, but this is true for the Virgo sun and the Virgo moon, is extend that metaphor to the ability to process words and language and experiences. There's a difficulty with that for Virgos. There has to be an awareness that what you hear, what you read, what you consume, what you eat, everything goes through an assimilation process. And as
Mm.
a Virgo, it's important to be aware of processing that. We
Not just with food, with
right,
anything.
right with anything, right? And you see this most clearly with Virgo ascendants who have problems in digesting the words that are expressed to them. And usually there's a difficulty and there's almost like sometimes an inability to digest certain things,
Mm.
mesh it out or talk it out, because there's a real restriction on what words they're allowing into their audio perception and experience. It's
Mhm.
fascinating to observe. And again, this is true on the moon level and the sun level. You know what I mean? There's a certain almost like control over what they want to control the outside and what comes in.
That makes sense to me, yeah. Definitely.
But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that loosely because that metaphor extends the assimilation. So that's
Yeah. Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, the strengths of this moon is like there's an extreme ability to like dedicate oneself to the mastery of systems because it is such a systemic sign and energy that when the mind is, the moon is occupying the sign, there's a lot of brilliance and a lot of just like knowledge that the sign can have and embody. And, the glyph being the virgin, people kind of mistake the meaning of that. But I'm interested on your take, Mario. My understanding is kind of like this maybe symbol of being having purity, maybe that's the word, purity, or embodying like a kind of like untouched or like
like above
yeah, like
all, like an ability to touch, like they're not touched by the world or some kind of pretense that they're untouchable. There is definitely the purity theme in Virgos. You know what I mean? There's definitely that. Virgo suns carry that. Virgo ascendants carry a certain naivety. And Virgo moons would also carry a certain sense of that because, again, they're almost perceptively disconnected from the soil of the world or attempt to disconnect themselves from it. They want to look forward and build and focus on perfecting, something outside of themselves. There's no acknowledgement of the dirt that they may be standing in. It's not about that. It's where they're pointing towards or building towards.
mhm.
But there definitely is. I'm glad you touched on that. The theme of purification with Virgo, which is probably again embodied on this particular sigil of Virgo, not something I can relate right now that comes to mind. But purity being a huge theme. Just the process of purification itself, right? Everyone knows a lot of Virgos and Virgo moons that are always doing cleanses, was obsessed with some intent, to purify,
Right.
There's a character in, I think,
Right.
Chronicles of Riddick, who was I know this is a weird kind of reference. No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was Chronicles of Riddick, the film part two. There was this particular character called the Purifier, and he was embodied by an actor who in a sense was all about that. It was fascinating. It was just a almost like picture perfect Virgo archetype. I want to watch that film again just because we're talking about it. But anyway, yeah, no, great point. Great
It'd
theme.
be interesting too, like if that actor has that archetype
And I
dominant.
want to check, right?
Yeah,
No,
check, because that's usually the case. I mean, usually it is because they're selected based on something in their essence that's resonating with this character, and many times it's confirmed through the astrology. And
no,
whether it's planned or not, we don't know. But yeah, it's just those, it's like a co-occurrence that you'll see a lot with film and, even TV shows, like where the actor embodies or has the placements that the character likely you would think the character would have as well.
yeah, right on, exactly.
Cool. Well, if you guys want to get in touch, you can comment, reach us via email. We're available for readings. We also have many other videos, and this is part of a larger series where we're covering every moon sign. So yeah, give us your insight, what you think of this moon placement, or if you have this moon placement. Your feedback is always appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much,
Thank you.
everyone, and we'll see you guys again on the next vid.